Carissa.
Hi.
I haven't seen your face in a long time.
I know, and I have like a weird sun thing going on
Hey,
here, but
I have a halo. I just keep telling myself it means I'm an angel.
you are, of course.
It depends on the day. And I can't get rid of it because it is the only light in my office. So no matter where I put myself, the same thing happens. So I kind of sit off to the side and then it looks more like an orb or something. Okay, if you want to hit record, Marty, we can start.
Already done.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I think everyone was here on Tuesday. If you weren't, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, but I'm pretty sure I recognize the names. Mary, I wondered, and I didn't want to, I was hoping that I was right. So Mary, if you don't mind telling us who you are and what organization you're from.
Sure. I'm Mary Vandervoort. I'm with Heartlands Conservancy, a regional nonprofit organization.
And what do you do for Heartlands? Sorry.
Oh, I'm the president and CEO.
Okay, awesome. Well, welcome. My name is Katie Robberson. I'm a faculty member in the School of Business. So we are a pretty small group, which is good. We'll probably do a lot of these kind of breakout sessions today, just in this group, instead of actually sending you into breakout rooms. But we're going to focus today a little bit on competitive advantage as a definition, and then we'll move into what does it mean, how do we analyze it, and then we'll go into reputation management. And we'll end today kind of with a self-reflection about your product and service assessment, because my hope is that when you leave today, you can use some of these things kind of in your everyday, not everyday practice, but in your often practice as it relates to your business. I'm gonna move my chat over here. You're going to be seeing a lot of my profile. I apologize, but in order to look at your faces, I have you over here. So you'll see the side of my face quite a bit today. So here's kind of what we'll cover. How do we define competitive advantage, and then how do we analyze it? And that analysis is really the piece that I hope you all take from these 2 days more than anything, because being able to stay current on your competitive advantage is a huge benefit to your organization. We'll get into reputation management. That's always a pretty fun discussion because there's usually some very interesting stories out there. And then we'll talk about product service assessment. So kind of how do we look at and assess our products and service when we are right there all the time. So sometimes we get very tunneled vision about the products and services that we offer. And so stepping back and doing an assessment from time to time can really help us. So we all know what competitive advantage is, but if you want like the textbook definition, right, it's this advantage that we gain by giving consumers something of greater value. And that's the conversation that we want to have today. How do we really focus on what it is that is of greater value offered by our organization as compared to someone else's? So as we work through the kind of self-reflection and exercises that we do today, I want you to really kind of focus on that word value. So what is the value that my service provides? What is the value that my product provides over others? And sometimes that value is simply in the employee or in yourself, and you have to recognize that as a part of competitive advantage too. So who you are, the service you offer, the follow-up that you provide, the actions that you take, the customer service that you provide, as we talked about on Tuesday, all falls into that value and what sets you apart from your competition. So if we're going to go in like as a marketing analyst or a business analyst and talk about how we analyze our competitors, it all starts with identification. And so we'll do a really brief kind of analysis today, but you want to look at who are our competitors? What is it that my light just went out, so I'm going to be in the dark for the rest of the day. Who is it that we kind of interact with, not necessarily on a day-to-day basis in our competition, but frequently? And those are the competitors you want to focus on first. Who do we kind of go up against on a pretty regular basis? And I would want you to focus on those. You then look at what their objectives are. So what do they say their mission is? You know, what does your competition say that they provide? And how do they do it? So what is the strategy they use to provide that product or service? You also want to measure their strength and weakness, right? Likelihood is, you know, what sets you apart. It's just sometimes hard to remember when you have less of the market share, right? So you really want to pay attention to where are the weaknesses in my competition that I can go in and kind of take advantage of this niche or this value that I provide that maybe they don't. And then the reaction patterns. So what kind of reaction do they get in the market space, and what are the patterns? Sometimes what we see, depending on industry, is this kind of like cyclical move and share in certain areas of our competition. And so if you can come in when they're experiencing a dip, you can sometimes establish, you know, an opportunity to kind of overtake that business from them and then maybe retain some of it as you move through. Then we get to the end, we're going to pick which competitors do we want to attack. This sounds like a really mean thing, right? We're going to attack them or we're going to avoid them. Like it or not, there's going to be some competitors we just can't match. And that could be because of size, it could be because of share, it could be because of finances, it could be scale. I mean, there's any number of reasons that there might be some competitors that are just not worth attacking. But there are always going to be some, what we call the low-hanging fruit, right? Where your opportunities exist and you can go in and try to carefully select which of their weaknesses can I kind of pinpoint and then create a value for my customers. So does this make sense? These three kind of, not really steps, but these three things I'd want you to think through. Martha's saying yes. If
Yes,
you
it
wanna,
does.
okay. All righty. So we're going to do this first breakout, and I will actually probably send you to a room just because sometimes when I'm in the room, people won't talk freely. So I might send you all to one breakout room and then just pop in from time to time, or I'll put myself on mute or something. What I want you to walk through with each other is name your three main competitors. I'll just stay. Okay, what are your three main competitors? I want you to think about that. And you can jot these down. I want you to think about their strengths, their weaknesses, and then as a group, we'll kind of analyze who you think you should target first. Does that make sense? So if you have a piece of scratch paper, if you'll write down who you think your three main competitors are, their strengths, their weaknesses, and then we'll kind of debrief. So I'll just keep you all here for a few minutes. If you want to just give me a thumbs up when you've jotted those things down. I don't expect you to necessarily be done, but I don't want you sitting there waiting on me. Okay.
Sorry.
Mary and Dave and Aurora, if you'll just throw a thumbs up in the chat or unmute yourself when you're ready, then we can kind of move on, but I don't want to rush you. Okay. All right, so if you will share out kind of, if you don't mind, who your three main competitors are, kind of their brief strengths and weaknesses, all of you, and then we can kind of discuss targets. Anybody want to go first?
I will.
Martha, okay.
Okay, I had Busey Bank, which used to be Bank of Edwardsville, First Mid Bank and Trust, and then Regions Bank. And the Busey Bank, the Bank of Edwardsville was such a huge community-based organization that, and that's really one of the biggest advantages credit unions have, is they really are community oriented. Well, Bank of Edwardsville was really had that market, a lot of loyalty, which was their biggest strength. Busey has absorbed some of that, but their disadvantage that they, or weakness that they have, is because now they are part of the other outside organization. So I actually kind of had them in both places. Then First Mid Bank and Trust. Because our names are so similar, there have been like 3 companies that have changed their names that are often confused with us. So again, those 2 I kind of put in the same category, because we really have to differentiate, and we get calls for one another all the time. Often I know people that work there, so they'll be calling and saying, you really want, a different Martha. And then Regions Bank, because on the commercial side, they really had a lot of the market. We're really just starting to get in, the credit unions just starting to get into some of that in the last several years. And so the advantage they have is that they've got more history with that. The weakness they have is that a lot of the decision makers are not local. So
right, the kind of the big feel. Your First Mid-America Credit Union?
yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah, we used to be Olin Credit Union.
Yes, okay, just wanted to make sure, because you're right, there are a lot of first somethings, First Mid. Right. So who do you feel your competition that you would kind of want to target first?
Really, we've kind of Busey has been a focus, because like you said, when they took over the Bank of Edwardsville, that was an opportunity for us, because there were some people that didn't like the change. They were not comfortable with that. So we have tried to focus on that. So that probably is still one of my main focuses, I would say.
And I think that's fair. And we might use Busey as a good example when we get to reputation management, because they had some issues there for a while in that arena, for sure. Anybody want to go next? Thank you, Martha.
All right, I can jump in here if we want.
Yeah, Hi.
Hi there. So my main position right now is with a supported living facility. It's Knollwood Retirement Community in Caseyville, Illinois. And so our competition are other supported living facilities. We have Fox's Grove out of the Alton area. We have Evergreen out of the Alton area. We have Fox's Grove out of Wood River area, and Cambridge House, which has a few different locations all over the place. All of them have way better website than what we have right now. We are in the process of redoing our website, so that's minimal, bit. But I think that we are. So Cambridge has multiple locations, so they have a bigger team to draw from than we do. So when we're trying to shuffle people around, we only have the staff at our one facility. They have a larger pool of people because they have, I don't even know how many different locations they have, but they have quite a few different locations. Same thing with Fox's Grove, although Fox's Grove itself is just a single location. They are owned by a bigger corporation that has locations all over the place. And I feel like a lot of times that might give them more flexibility, more resources to draw from, that we don't have being a single smaller supported living facility. And then the Evergreen has the option of having pets, which we don't have pets at our place, which I feel I'm a dog owner. So someday when I'm old, I probably would want to have my dog with me wherever I'm at. And I know we've had other residents express interest in keeping their cats or their dogs with them. We're not set up for that currently at our place. So I think those are some strengths that the competition has. As far as the weaknesses, sometimes I think being bigger, while that can be a benefit to some of our competitors, sometimes I also think that's a weakness because our executive staff is very close to what's going on in the facility on a day-to-day basis. And I'm relatively sure that the executive staff at some of these larger ones that have 3, 4, 5, 10 different locations probably are not involved in the day-to-day very often, if at all. So I think that that's kind of their strength and their weakness. And I'm a little biased, but I think our staff's better. Our staff, we select them to make sure that they are really caring about the residents. And I don't know that I've heard that from staff at other locations. So I guess that's what I have.
So do you currently have a strategy? Is there one competitor you all try to kind of not necessarily take business from, but target?
We don't really target any of them, but we are all targeting the same customer base.
Right.
So we it can be challenging because it's not like what Martha was talking about with the bank, where you could deal with banking clients separately and it's not their home that you're going to deal with them. Supported living, you have to actually contact them in their home in a lot of instances, which may be your competitor's location. So it's a little tricky. Have to sometimes just have casual conversations or mailing going out in like a general mailer going out to try to gather that interest, because there is some mutual respect where we wouldn't necessarily want them coming in and having a big production in our building trying to take residents. We can't do the same in their building.
Sure.
It's really tricky.
Yeah. Thank you.
We promote word of mouth to get people in. That's what we've primarily done.
Mm-hmm. And so when we get to the reputation management part of today, I think you'll kind of align with a lot of what we discussed there and how important it is. Mary, Dave, or Carissa, do you want to share? You don't have to, but I'm happy to have you share.
Well, for me, so the community center, not exactly a business that looks at competitors per se, or would look at that. That's just not the nature of what we do. If anything, you could say that Meals on Wheels, the National Meals on Wheels program, is a competitor. And that's really weird to think of it that way and look at it in that sense. And that their strength would be they're cheaper than what we do. But the weakness is they don't right now at least do a daily visit, whereas we do a daily visit and well check. So that's certainly something we have an advantage. Now for me, from my travel agency side of things, certainly there's competitors out there all over the place. You have the travel agents that have storefronts and are very visible, people that have been around for ages. And my biggest one would probably be one in Collinsville that specializes in Disney. So certainly that. Weaknesses, I'm still very fresh into this. I'm not real sure what all their weaknesses would be, except for potentially being the bigger groups and agencies may not be necessarily giving as much individual attention right now, would be my assumption, but I don't know that positively.
I think that's probably a fair guess. And I think for you, a strength that you would have is your relationships within community, right?
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mary or Dave, do either of you want to share? Thanks, Carissa.
Well, I mean, one of ours, I'm in retail, which is a little different. than most people in this call, right? So, and I'm trying to grow my online business. So that's where I think of mostly there right now as competitors, you know, other names. So we sell, what the thing I'm focusing on is our Abe's Gourmet Popcorn. So we sell gourmet popcorn and we have quite a good following locally, a few competitors locally. But the thing is, and even after almost 10 years, is like people still don't know we're here. And so that's the same thing in online is, you know, how do we expand online? I just got an online store running in December, et cetera. So, I mean, my competition is bigger names that people recognize in the gourmet popcorn world, like Garrett's in Chicago, right? There's another popcorn store in Edwardsville, which I hear does a pretty decent online sales, but from my supplier tells me that from all the supplies he sells them, and they say that's where they're doing it, but I don't know if they're selling locally or they're selling, you know, nationally more, you know, where that business is coming from. So it's hard to say where we can attack them. I think as far as product and prices, you know, we have an advantage there. Compared to them. So far, I think are building out our website. I'm following a lot more farms. So I spend a lot of time during the week reading about sales and online sales and how to tweak product listings, et cetera. So.
Thanks, Dave. I think that is when our competitors are online, it changes this analysis because it's much harder to get information, especially if they're not local. So I can appreciate the struggle it is to know kind of what that space looks like as far as, you know, maybe how is Chef Shop getting their online business? Is it only local? Is it, you know, national? What does that look like? When did you set up your storefront? I think I missed that.
The online storefront, it was just the beginning of December. I got it up for the Christmas season.
Okay.
And most of my sales were driven locally, but I was concentrating some of my online advertising locally. And I think I just need to concentrate the online advertising nationally and find the proper keywords.
Right. And there's a whole, I mean, that would be like a whole nother session, but you're absolutely right. I think there are definitely advantages to having an online storefront for you to expand, because it's a much lower kind of overhead cost to do that. So, well, thank you all. I think that, you know, if nothing else, even if you don't take anything from anything I say or from others, it makes you think. And that's kind of why we're here today. So, well, we're not coming back to breakouts because there's only 4 of you. So it's a very like intimate little session that we have today. Anything that anyone else said that you want to comment on or made you think about something before we move on? Okay. So we're going to talk now about kind of where we left off on Tuesday, which is reputation management. And reputation management, I consider it a new area in some ways because it's only about online presence. Reputation management, when we think about it in terms of reviews or bad experiences being shared word of mouth, that's existed for forever since there's been products and services that we take in as consumers. But the difference here is this online presence and how it has drastically changed the way we have to do business, the way we market our business, the way consumers interact with our business. And what does that mean for kind of our presence there, but also our response to any kind of negative or positive feedback that we're given from this kind of very digital space. It's not a very personal space, right? We've all seen negative reviews or really horrible things said online, and it's much easier to do in an online space than it is face-to-face or even over the phone. So we're going to spend a decent amount of time here now talking kind of about this reputation management piece. Why do you think we would talk about reputation management during a competitive advantage presentation?
Martha here, because it's such a huge part of doing business now in today's market.
Absolutely. Aurora, does your industry have a lot of presence in the digital space?
The industry and overall does. Our company historically has not. We're working on getting better at that. I was with the company some time ago, left and came back to the company in November. And so since November, it's been a marathon race of sorts, trying to get the business up in electronic 21st century ready.
Gotcha. And Carissa, obviously travel, I mean, that's online a lot, right?
Yeah, very much so. More online than anything.
Right. And I would imagine for you and probably for the agency that you're under, I mean, do they have a storefront or no?
No, nope.
And then Dave, your popcorn business has a storefront and also has an online storefront, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now that I'm kind of settled there, anybody else want to add to why it's so important for competitive advantage? Do you know the statistic about how many times we tell somebody a good experience versus a bad experience?
Not enough.
So bad experiences we're more likely to tell up to 10 people. Good experiences, 1 or 2. And so reputation management comes into play on both ends. And we'll kind of talk about how does that work? What do we do on the positive side, okay, to really grow our reputation and expand it in a positive way? And then how do we kind of mitigate anything negative that might be said out there online? So there's kind of these 3 strategies that we talk about, and they're really individual strategies. You kind of have to do all of them for it to work, but they're different stages. So one of the pieces of reputation management is to monitor your reputation out there in the digital space. So who are your customers? Who are your influencers? Don't think of that as like the Instagram-y influencers. I mean, who within the community that you're trying to reach has influence? Does that make sense? So for example, Aurora, I imagine that you all probably pull potentially from some home health agencies or some hospitals or, you know, those sorts of things. So that's what I mean by influencer. And then what are competitors saying? Now, Aurora's industry, she talked about the fact that they kind of have to play nice, at least out there in public. Martha, what about you? Do your competitors talk much about each other out in the online world?
Well, not directly. Some, you know, like a bank versus a credit union, they will say different things about the industry, but not specific. And I know we always try and avoid that ever, you know.
Right.
Meant, you know, pointing anyone out by
name, right. Carissa and Dave, I would assume that you all probably don't talk a whole lot about competition either in the digital space.
No, I mean, our agency does when we have our agency meetings and such, but no,
Right.
not out in the digital world.
Not for public consumption.
Right.
Fair. Okay, so what we should know though is we should also know the influencers of our competition, if at all possible. And what are they saying about us? So we really want to monitor kind of our space out there online. And there's ways to do it. There's like fancy software that'll do it for you. You can hire people to do it for you, but you can do it yourself. I mean, Google searches, going into the various social media and searching for your company name, or if you are the company or if you are the service provider looking for your name. And you can start to kind of see trends. Local kind of community groups. Sometimes you'll see reputation stuff out there that you might need to mitigate. So paying attention or having someone within the organization dedicated to monitoring the online presence of your company, if it's big enough, is really important. Because we all know that the sooner we can kind of grab a problem and handle it, the better. So that's part of the monitor stage. The next is respond. And so it's here we're thinking about how do we respond in a way that builds kind of positive equity, positive brand equity for ourselves and our kind of customers, but also the community as a whole. Part of what we do when we respond is a reflection on our organization or ourselves. So if we choose to attack back when we've been attacked, that's not great for our business. We see it happen, right? But by and large, you should have some kind of very set standards about what you say in response. Most big companies have this and have it set up and ready to go. But for smaller organizations, it takes a lot of time and effort, and they might not have an employee that's dedicated to this as part of their job. So spending the time to know kind of what to respond with and how to respond is important. Hi, Matt. And then I guess I kind of already moved into the plan without intending to, but you do want to have a plan for who, how, and when you're going to respond. There are times when a response is not justified. Can anybody think of a time when you wouldn't want to respond to something being said in a digital space?
Maybe if somebody's posting something that is just completely off topic or completely like really blatantly just like really a blatant attack of some sort. I just try to think of what I've seen on our other social media. We haven't personally experienced this, but I've seen, looking at other feeds or other social media things or whatnot. I've seen some really strange things. Like, why would that person even? It has nothing to do with what they're even posting about.
Right. And so sometimes it's a matter of like, I can't engage in an argument with this individual because it's never going to equalize in anything. So I'm just not going to respond. But what else do we maybe want to avoid responding to? Think about a pattern. So if you're getting positive, positive, negative, negative, and you're following this feed as the reputation manager for your organization, you don't want to just respond to positive. And sometimes we get in that habit of, oh, this comment feels good, so I'm going to say thanks, but I'm going to ignore all the negative. And that's not a great strategy either. So when we talk about reputation management, we have to be okay with diplomatically handling the negative. And sometimes strategies, depending on the space where it's happened, it might be appropriate to reach out to that person as an individual, if you know them in particular. So if you're a small business owner or you know your customer base well, or you are the business, right? A call from an owner to somebody that's upset means a lot versus, sending an employee to go and handle that. So the plan of who, how, and when is important too, because we don't want things lingering. What I mean by that is you don't want somebody to take you to task online and let it sit for 3 days. So ideally you would have somebody that's kind of out there monitoring for you. And then once they find something, they know how to respond and who, usually it's the person that's monitoring, plays that same role, unless you have like a giant marketing agency that's handling it, which I don't know that any of you, Martha might, I don't know. Do you have in-house marketing?
We actually, yeah, we do. There's our marketing department now is 6 people. So there's 2 that basically respond to those, all the, they get alerts, they, have phones and tablets. So they, and, they respond to everything. They do have the capability to take certain things down. I don't know exactly which point it is, but, they try not to do that. But always reach out to them off side if it is something that, is a serious issue.
Right. And I think, for in-house marketing people, that is really helpful because at least on your bank social media, they can take things down. But once out there, like public record wise, they can't influence, they can only respond to. So I would imagine that you are probably the only one of the attendees today that has dedicated marketing staff. Is that true? Aurora, do you guys have a sales and marketing person?
We do have a marketer. Her digital marketing skill set is still being expanded. So she still has some room to grow there in that area, but we do have a marketer.
Okay, fair enough. There was a time in my life where I was the marketing rep for a home health agency. So I can relate to that role. Dave, I'm going to guess that you do a lot of your own marketing.
Yeah, me, myself, and I.
I figured. Carissa, for your travel agency, is it mostly you, yourself, and you?
Yep.
Okay. Matt, what are you doing these days? Handling it all yourself, I assume?
Yeah, try not to market.
You're one of few that are in this call that can probably not have to market, since you're in such a very unique niche.
Yeah, we get calls. We're at capacity right now, and so we don't really need more work. But that being said, I'm still seeking for it because I want to grow the business. We're entirely relationship based, almost entirely. There's very, very rarely, if somebody calls me out of the blue and says, I'd love to work with you, my first reaction is I'm suspicious. So that's an ironic kind of way to go about a business, isn't it? No, I typically, about 80 to 90% of my new work comes from my existing clients, and the remainder almost always comes from people who are, one-off. They're 1 degree away from an existing client. So we don't get that many kind of random calls.
Sure, and that makes sense given your kind of industry, if you want to call it an industry. So, all right, so now we're gonna kind of have fun, and this is, I consider this fun. You all probably don't think it's fun, but I want you to think of a time when you have either witnessed within your own organization or another one, doesn't have to be yours, a bad reputation management incident, okay? And you can leave names out of it. Like, I don't need to know what business, who said what went down, okay? You can make that all up if you want to. But think about a time when you've witnessed a reputation management issue online, and then we're going to kind of walk through solving one together, okay? So anybody have one right off the top of their head? Yeah. Martha does.
I have this was a company that had a breach of employee identities, and so there was stuff in the newspaper about all of these employees being at risk for fraud, because all of their personal information was out there. And it's a local company that employs quite a few people, but they do have a lot of competition also.
And so how did they handle it out there online? Would you say they handled it well, not so well?
I actually think they did handle it well. My heart went out to them, because they're actually one of my business partners that I try to go and talk to their employees. And my heart went out to them because it could have happened to anybody, but they did a really good job of letting people know that they were offering the credit monitoring service to all of their employees, that no one at this point had any risk, and talked about the measures they were taking to more securely build their network, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And they had they got into it through the HR department. So,
and that's kind of that, they didn't hide behind it, right?
No,
yeah.
They didn't. Yeah.
Who else has ever witnessed reputation management gone wrong? Because it sounds like they did a good job. It wasn't a good instant, but how they handled it was good. They got out in front of it, they acknowledged it, they said what they were going to do about it, and then they actually did it. I see it every day, like in the local Facebook moms groups, where people are just tearing into small businesses. Maybe not every day, but often. It happens on a national scale sometimes. If you ever look at Twitter, which I don't know much about Twitter, but there are lots of cases where, Wendy's is kind of notorious for just coming right out at the consumer. And saying, that's fine, don't eat at our restaurants anymore. They can say that because they're Wendy's, right? And they have millions of customers. Now, if you are Dave or Matt or Carissa or Aurora and Martha, like you don't have millions of customers. Martha, you probably have a lot, I would guess. Aurora, I don't know the size of your organization, but we have to be a little more cautious than that and not so cavalier. So nobody has a good example to discuss. Otherwise I can make one up.
Another one, I mean, I could bring one up that we haven't quite fully resolved yet, and it's from some really old Yelp reviews that we had. I mean, I'll pick on our company, and I mentioned them briefly.
I remember that now.
Yesterday or Tuesday. Let me pull it up here really quick so I can have the actual verbiage.
Yeah, because I think we could all brainstorm with you. That's kind of part of this, right? We learn best by actually doing.
So people didn't pay very much attention to our online presence for quite some time. So this is some old reviews that are out here from, let's see what they're from. I'm gonna find them all because they were from some time ago. So I actually, when I came back to the company, I went online and I claimed our Yelp identity at least and started the process here.
That's
okay, so
good.
One from 2018 said, stay away, terrible food, little portions, cold, salty, and full of grease. Relative has lost weight since being here. There's also no dietitian here, which I thought was a must for senior facilities. Complaints mean nothing. Many residents saw one of the managers yell at a complaining resident. Some workers are very nice. The only thing about this place that can be considered a plus. So this was an older comment that I responded to because nobody else had been monitoring our online digital sphere. But I know for a fact from having seen in person, which of course is not how I responded to this person, but I know for a fact from having seen in person that we provide a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner, not small portions. Residents can have seconds if they want. We have snacks out in between meals and in the evening hours. So like nobody goes hungry. And we even had residents who have taken extra food and they all have their own apartment refrigerators and they just like stock their refrigerator full of it from the dining room. And then the housekeeping staff has to go through and get rid of it periodically because they've kind of hoarded food in their apartments. So it's, I know for sure that those are not true statements. Now, as far as a relative having lost weight, I don't know this particular person. I did dig into it with me being back here and nobody knows who this person is who posted this and who this person's relative might be. So it's kind of like a mystery.
How you responded.
Oh, so I said, hi, Kara, we provide hot breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then since I was responding now during COVID-19, I said during COVID-19, these meals are delivered directly to residents' rooms. Our meal plans are reviewed on a regular basis by a dietitian. Meals are cooked fresh for each meal by our ServSafe certified staff, and the meals include choices of fresh fruits and vegetables. Staff should never yell at a resident. Please contact us so that we can understand more about your visit and the issues you raise. Thank you. And of course, I've never heard.
Right.
But
it's a perfect example, right, of getting out there and saying, kind of negating, right, the negative with just fact. So the biggest tip that professional reputation management people give to small businesses is base your response in fact. It's really hard to come after someone who is being factual in their response. So that was a perfect example of how to handle something like that. Now, it can get construed. And so if this had gone back and forth, at some point in time, like, you're done, right? Like one or two responses and you can walk away and know that you've done what you need to do. The dialogue that can occur online can then be shared online, right? So whatever we put out there, we have to remember is representative of the organization as well. That old like get up and take a walk or sit on it for 24 hours, those sorts of things becomes really important when you're in charge of your own marketing, because people will make you mad. Like it's going to happen. You're going to get a bad review or somebody's going to be upset. And your response to that is so important for kind of growing your business moving forward. A few like famous failures. I guess we can We'll look at my personal favorite. So KitchenAid, like the big famous KitchenAid. You all know this story? No? Okay. So during the Super Bowl, it was when Obama was president, so it's been about 5 or 6 years. Their social media manager was on the wrong Twitter handle. So instead of being on her Twitter handle, she was on KitchenAid's Twitter handle and said some really awful things about the current sitting president. Lost her job. KitchenAid had to come out and apologize. I mean, it was a big, big deal. So social media, although very important for our business, is also very detrimental to our businesses. And so be very careful to kind of set up your own spaces, right? So if it's completely different logins, if you're going to use like a Hootsuite or some kind of management tool where you know that when, especially for Aurora, for you, where you're trying to, really start this digital marketing, it needs to be very clear that you separate personal and private, because these mistakes happen all the time. It happened to a physician at WashU recently, maybe not recently, like probably 3 or 4 years ago, where she complained about a patient on her personal page, and she ended up losing her license over it. I mean, it's a big deal. So some like tips from the pros, they would say, make sure you have your own, if it's a different laptop, if it's a different phone, whatever it is, but make it a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Clear delineation between your personal online space and your business online space, if that's your job. Anybody else have good examples of when it's gone bad? There's usually really fun ones.
Well, I just know of one local incident where there was a realtor and she was talking very specifically about a client. And I mean, her picture's out there, her name's out there. I mean, she identified the neighborhood. She didn't call them by name on social media, but it was really obvious. And I kind of heard through the grapevine that she lost a lot of clients and people were just jumped all over it responding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sometimes best to just kind of like bite our tongue and not say anything in an online space, even if we want to. I am on, I don't often disclose this, but I'm on our local school board. I've learned a lot of lessons about biting my tongue this year.
I'm bad.
So, all right, well, let's move into any questions about reputation management or any other really fun, bad examples.
I probably wouldn't run for school board if I wanted to keep a great reputation within the community. That's I've learned one thing. I'm watching you. You take a lot of heat, Katie.
We do. It's all right. So let's move into kind of what I consider like the work part of today. I know I had you jot down a few things earlier today, but I think what you take from the past 2 days, this will probably be more beneficial than some of the other things, at least in my opinion. But I want you to spend some time doing what we call a product service assessment. And what this does is it looks at your current product and service offerings. Now, for most of you, it's like Dave is a clear product, right? Because he's retail. Not that there isn't a service component as well. Okay, but he can very clearly identify a product. Carissa, for you, I imagine it's going to be kind of a combo, right? Because the trips you provide could be considered a product, but you're also a part of that.
Right.
So
very true.
You don't have to tell me, you don't have to delineate in your head product or service, right? I just want you to assess what you have. Okay, what are your offerings? And what is the point in the product life cycle? And the product life cycle is important here because depending upon where you are, if you're just starting, the approach that you have to gaining advantage is different than if you've been there for a while. Does that make sense? So when you're first starting, it's all about growth. It's about name recognition. It's about making connections. It's about finding leads. But you're going to get to a point where you hit kind of this capacity, like Matt was talking about earlier, where maybe you can't take on any new business unless you take on another employee or something, depending on what's going on. And then it's about maintenance, right? So how do I maintain this good reputation that I have and this good level of involvement I have for my product or service, because I don't have the capacity to do more. And so if there's a product or service you want to focus on, like Carissa, do you only do Disney or do you do Disney and other things?
I specialize in Disney for the travel agent side of things, but I do other things as well.
Okay. So for you, you could say, okay, I'm going to focus on Disney, right? And in my product life cycle, I'm here for Disney. So I want you to really kind of hone in on one thing as you do this assessment, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
One thing that you're trying to improve. Think about who your target market is. So I want you to think about everything from their demographics to kind of your relationship in that space. And then what you think your current share is. Now, some of you are going to know or close to it, and some of you that will be fairly intangible. Okay. So those are the things that we measure when we're assessing our product and service kind of portfolio. And what you do with that, okay, is you use that self-reflection to then start to think about where your niche is. Okay, where can I find my value and my competitive advantage? So I'm going to turn my video off for a few minutes, and you guys can turn your videos off too for, I would say, at least 5 minutes to jot these things down and think them through. But when we come back, we'll kind of do a working session on this product service assessment. Okay? Questions? And Dave, if you can just unmute or send me a thumbs up so I know you came back. Awesome. Dave, do you have the capability to go to a breakout room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on a laptop. I mean, we used the breakout rooms the last time. So yeah.
Right. I just wanted to make sure. I know somebody called in from a phone earlier, so I just wanted to kind of double check.
Yeah. Yep.
I think what we're going to do for this breakout sharing is I am going to put you in rooms that are smaller. I think it'll make the discussion take a little bit less time and make it more rich. So my plan is, and tell me if you disagree, I was going to put Martha and Aurora together since they're kind of larger scale businesses with lots of employees. And then I was going to put Carissa, Matt, and Dave together to kind of walk through their discussion since they're a little bit smaller as far as employee size and that stuff. Are we good with that? Okay. So in breakout, I just want you to kind of share your reflections with each other and give each other some input, right? If you have any insight. When we come back, if you'll have an example to share about either something you picked up or a piece of advice you gave someone, it always helps to have other minds on it. Oftentimes as small businesses, we get kind of this tunnel vision. So it's helpful to kind of share with other people what we're working on. So I will send you into those for, we'll probably do about, let's share a little bit. It sounds like there was some good conversation. Yes, at least between Martha and Aurora. Anything that you all took from your breakout room that was helpful? Reflections, further discussion?
Well, I had a couple different products that I could have focused on, and Aurora, pointed out a good way to target the senior market for me.
Good. Awesome. What about in our smaller business room? Did you guys have a discussion, or did you just ask Dave what kind of popcorn he was going to send us?
No, we had a good discussion. And I mentioned like the client share side of things, for me, I mean, there are millions of people that go to Walt Disney World. So trying to figure out where my client base would best be, as Matt pointed out, local. It's likely like me trying to reach people in North Dakota is probably not the best place for me to try to find new clients. So local and the relationships path that I have here is the best way for me to go about that.
Yeah, and I think you have a lot of those kind of network opportunities already established for you, through your service, through the community center, all these, maybe, seniors might not be going to Disney, but they have family and
right.
ASC and school. And, it's amazing when you start to think about kind of the network that you can build just from relationships and service that you provide it within a community. Dave or Matt, anything you guys discussed that you want to share?
Didn't really let Dave get a word in edgewise. What I was sharing, and I think this is mostly what I've already said, was my relationship management is key to who I'm trying to serve in the future, because sustainability for me is sustainability for my clients. And if I can help them continue to receive funding, I continue to receive funding and then do one-offs from them. I'm always running through my head anytime we have a new opportunity, is it fit within our niche? And our niche is it something that's education? Is it something that's, within our strong suits, like we do a lot with STEM education? And is it something that we think can be sustainable, fitting within a couple other ideas that are these people that we know and we can develop? Like somebody, like if Edwardsville called me up, that'd be a lot easier than working with somebody in, Montana or something. I probably wouldn't do that.
Sure. Yeah. So you guys didn't let Dave talk?
I'm gonna let him talk now.
They did just fine. Yeah. I mean, I was, looking at some of those things as I'm not necessarily selling popcorn, I'm selling gifts right now. That's what my online store is focused on.
Okay.
So, and then the reputation, et cetera, is all there. And, I've monitored me and actually my one employee, we look at our Google ratings and our Yelp and things like that and check them out. We try to respond when somebody comments. Somebody gave us a 5-star rating on Facebook this week. So, I saw it pop up and I replied, thanking them, et cetera, telling them that, yeah, we always try to. They're like, this tastes the best. It never tastes funky. We're like, yeah, there you go.
Order more. Gifts is probably an important thing right now, given our inability to see people, right? So,
right.
I think you pointed a good spot to be in right now as far as your focus is how do we use maybe what some businesses would see as a disadvantage to our advantage, because you can ship and get it wherever you need it to go.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else from your discussion in your breakout rooms? Well, all right. So we're a little early. We've got about 10 minutes left. I had planned this session thinking there was going to be 18 people, which is why there were so many breakout rooms. But then, we had this little intimate crowd, so I kind of enjoy it. But tell me, what do you think you're already doing? I always ask this at the end of most of my trainings. What is something you feel you're already doing well when it relates to competitive advantage? And what is something you might start doing tomorrow or the next time you sit down to really work on building your business? There are certain competitive advantage kind of like textbook methods, right? So if we were just going to talk about like the 4 standard methods of competitive advantage, one is cost leadership. So you're going to be the cheapest out there, like the Walmarts of the world. Okay. None of you really fit into that strategy necessarily. Like, you're not always going to be the price leader, right? That's not necessarily a great strategy to go for any of your businesses. There's differentiation. So differentiation, when we think about that, is the differentiation in the products or services we provide. So for some of you, that might work as a focus for your competitive advantage. After that, we get into kind of defensive strategies. And so when I asked you to think about the life cycle of your product or service, when you get into maintenance, sometimes you do have to be defensive. Okay, you have to kind of maintain the business that you already have. So looking for the areas where people might be trying to take your clientele or to, put in some little, not evil things, but things that aren't necessarily true about your business. How are you going to go about defending, the customers that you've gained and that loyalty? And the one that works for almost everyone all the time is strategic alliance. And so who can I align myself with? What organizations, what individuals, what businesses can I align myself with? We saw a perfect example when Aurora and Martha were talking about, Martha coming in and possibly talking to some of the residents, or I didn't hear the whole conversation, but the idea of that senior market space, right? That would be considered a strategic alliance. Matt's mentioned about, you know, the one-off, you get one customer and then that customer becomes another customer. That can oftentimes grow into these alliances. So really kind of think about scaling your business that way, right? So who do I already align with? Maybe they haven't used my service or product yet, but if not, why not? And then how do I kind of grow from these alliances? We used to, in home health, align ourselves a lot with different, you know, retirement facilities. So, you know, there's opportunities to strategically align ourselves all the time that we might not recognize. So before we go, if you have anything you feel like you're already doing really well or something you'll start doing in the next, you know, few days, based on our conversations, I would love to hear it.
Well, one thing that we do, and I think, well, and we've struggled doing it the last year, but we work with a lot of school districts. You know, we go in and do financial education for seniors, you know, and then we work with their staff also. And, you know, when we're in the schools, we are not doing a sales pitch, we're doing education. We're doing actually this program, it's called Mad City. It's a live budgeting simulation, which is great. Parents love it. You know, the teachers are all amazed because, you know, back in my day, we did consumer ed and they don't all do that any longer. So that's one thing that I think we do well. And then we had really just started a program for younger children, just on basics, understanding the importance of savings. So we are kind of struggling how to keep those same opportunities in this environment.
Right. You could almost create like a virtual class that you send out to, it'd be hard to do is it Mad City? Is that what you called it?
Yeah.
That would be hard to do, but
Right.
I'm sure there are, especially remote teachers, looking for videos to put out for students about budget.
Right. Yeah.
Anybody else have something you feel like you're already doing really well that someone else might be able to use or borrow? All right. Well, thank you all. I'll let you out about 6 minutes early unless there was something else you wanted to chat about. No. Okay. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Enjoy the sunshine.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
This is Marty from the SBDC. Thank you for participating in our event and keep an eye out for others that we have.
Thanks
Have
for
a good
offering.
day.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.